between the cell and the table, and cell padding is the content and the inner walls of the cell. I mean the border of the particular cell. So you have seen the output for all the respective things. Okay. So for in today's class, we shall discuss about the forms. Okay. So as we have discussed in our previous classes, like when you want to submit any form to the server, like some details to the server, you basically use these forms. So form is actually a usual way in which the information is sent to the server from the browser. So in the browser, you are filling some form like your personal details or any organizational details, and then when you click on the submit button, that respective fields will go to the server and the respective action is performed. So what are the different elements in the forms that we are going to see in this current class? The HTML has the tags to create a collection of objects that implement this information gathering. For example, in your form, you want to write your name. Okay, for that particular purpose, we use the input tag. Okay, so input is one of the form element. In the similar way, we have a radio buttons, checkboxes. Okay, for example, you need to specify your gender. For that, you can find checkboxes. You check on either male or female, and there are some radio buttons. Like you can, in some cases, actually, you will have a radio buttons to allow the user to select only one attribute at a time, either male or female. Whereas checkboxes, it will allow you to select the multiple options. Okay, you are interested in so and so. For example, I am interested in cricket, volleyball, and coco. So you can specify some personal interest using by checking these checkboxes. It will allow multiple selection. Okay, whereas radio buttons it will allow only the single selection. So when you click on the submit button, these form values are sent to the backend, which is your server. That may be a Java server or PHP or anything. Okay. All of the widgets or components of a form are defined in the content of a form tag. So as you did previously in a table tag, which is a root element of the table, similarly here we have a form tag, which is the parent. The only required attribute of the form is action. So you have to specify the particular action, like it's a submit action, or see here, which specifies the URL of the application that is to be called when submit button is clicked. Okay, when you click on the submit button, what is the action that has to be performed? Whether it should trigger a function or it has to navigate to another URL that will be specified in this action. Okay. If the as you see the example here, action equal to, so which means it has to navigate to that particular URL. If the form has no action, the value of action is the empty string. So you don't want to perform any action, you don't want to hit any server, or you want to do it only locally, then in that case you can give an empty string. And forms, we have the method attribute of the form, which specifies one of the two possible techniques of transferring the form data to the server, get and post. So these were also discussed earlier. Like we have a get and a post methods, through which we actually transfer our attributes. Like you have a login page, you want to give your username and password, and you hit on the submit button. In that case, you are actually passing two parameters, your username and password. So this can be sent using this get and post methods. Similarly, we have a widgets, as we have seen radio and the checkboxes. We have the input tag, in which it's a text box where you enter your name or some kind of text in the input, okay, or a number. So there are certain rules for this text. Okay, creates a horizontal box for text input. Default size is 20. So default you can enter 20 characters. So it can be changed with the size attributes. For input tag, we have an attribute called size. For anchor tag, as we have a href. For this particular input, you have the size, and you can specify 30. It means it will allow 30 characters. Okay. If more characters are entered, then will fit the box is scroll left. So if there are more than some specified number of characters, like if they are exceeding the particular length, then you can have some like scroll inside the box. So So here if you can see, if you don't want to allow the user to type more characters than will fit, set the max length which causes excess input to be ignored. For example, so this is your basic syntax, like input type is equal to text. So you are going to type the particular text format and the name is phone. Okay, this name means it is talking about what is the number you are entering about. So in validations and all, this will be 12 here. So if you give here max length is equal to 2, so you will not be able to enter more than 12 characters in your box. So that is the specification of the max length. So generally if you give 12, you are specifying actually you are entering the 12 characters. Checkbox to collect the multiple choice input. So every checkbox require a value attribute which is the widget's value in the form data when the checkbox is checked. Okay, so what it means is like for checkbox you should require a value attribute. Okay, so you are checking on the cricket which is passed to the backend. So a checkbox that is not checked contributes no value to the form data. So when you are sending your form data from your front end or a browser to the backend, so when you haven't checked anything, the value will not be passed. If you have checked any checkbox, the value like cricket is passed as a form data to your backend. So by default, no checkbox is initially checked. So by default, as we have already seen, some headers have the margin and padding. So here we don't have any default value for the checkbox. It is unchecked by default. Okay. To initialize the checkbox to checked, the checked attributes must be set to checked. So as we have already seen, like there are certain attributes like max length or input type. So we have also a checked attribute. Okay, if you make checked is equal to checked within the string, in that case that input box will be checked by default. Okay, by default means when you give the property it will show the output as it is already checked, which is a tick mark. Okay, so here like border is equal to like in table we have given like table border is equal to in a string format border, right? In the similar way here also you will give the input type is equal to text and checked is equal to checked within the string format. Show you an example here. I hope everyone can see my screen and okay. So here as earlier we specify the doc type, which version it is, and the comments. So what is that program talking about? HTML namespace, head, title, body. So here we have a label and the input tag. For generally form, this is the format that you follow. Okay, form action is equal to empty string. As we discussed in our PPT, if you want to navigate to another URL, another page, you give the action as that particular URL or a method. Okay, if there is nothing action to be performed, we'll get it as an empty string. Okay, and we have the input tag. Type is equal to checkbox, name is equal to groceries, value is equal to milk, checked is equal to checked. So let us see how the output is here. This is your form. So this is your label. So within this label is a tag like a input tag. Okay, in the form we generally specify the label. Okay, so input type is equal to checkbox, name is equal to groceries. So it comes under the categories of the grocery, and value is equal to milk. So whatever value you are specifying, right, that you can see beside the your checkbox. This is the value. So this is the form data. Okay, which will be sent to the backend. So checked is equal to checked. So as you have specified in HTML as checked is equal to checked, you got this as by default tick. Okay. Otherwise, this. Okay. Value is equal to bread, and you didn't specify any checked is equal to checked attribute. So it is unchecked, and we can make it as checked. Okay. So this is a basic example of how a checkbox looks. Button as well. So in the previous example, we have understood like checkbox we can do a multiple selections. Okay, whereas here in radio button you can make only one option, as everyone knows it very well. So you have this values like 0 to 19. I shall show you the code as well. So you have to appropriately open the form tag and close the form tag. So within the labels you have the radio button, the category it's like age, and value is under 20. So you whatever you have given, right, 0 to 19 is being for doing JavaScript dynamic functions and all. You have to be very careful about this value. Okay, the value and this particular uh, text can be equal. Okay, sometimes it changes based on the requirement. So see here, at a time you will be able to select only one item. So if you want to retrieve any value dynamically using JavaScript, then you will use certain methods in JavaScript. Okay, document dot, if you have some ID, document dot get element by ID. So this I will discuss in the JavaScript. Okay, let's see the tags here. Input tag, you specify the category as name. So these are all the attributes that comes here in your input tag. We have already seen. So now moving on to, so now sorry. Now actually we have discussed about this max length. Sorry, not max length. We have seen the examples. We have seen the example of an input tag. We can make a max length example as well. I'll show it to you. So this example we have gone through. Input type is equal to checkbox. Name, it tells about the category, the value, and the checked attribute. To observe is like, for the radio button it is mandatory to have the same name. Okay, because there will be only one item selected at a time. Okay, for you should have the same name for all the items here. See here, every button in a radio button group must have the same name. So menus created with the select tag. So there are two kinds of menus, those that behave like checkboxes and those that behave like a radio buttons, the default. So menus that behave like checkboxes are specified by including the multiple attribute. So we also have a multiple attribute in the checkboxes, and we have a select tag which enables us to select multiple options at a time. Okay, it has certain attributes like name and size. So if the size is set to greater than 1 or if multiple is specified, the menu is displayed as a pop-up menu. So we shall see the example of this also. I'll just run it and show you. Can we design jQuery here? Yeah, definitely we can do it with using the Bootstrap and jQuery. We will have a different syntax with respect to the Bootstrap and jQuery UI. So if so, let me go through your syllabus once again. So what are the additional topics? I can give you a separate session. So I'll be like more concentrating on your syllabus. I can show you the examples of the Bootstrap and jQuery UI as well. Okay. Specified name called groceries. So we have different options: milk, bread, eggs, and cheese. So in this particular drop down, you can see the different values. So select tag. You can so with the size is like 1. Default one will show it as a, by default we are selecting one value, like one option, and which is the starting one. Okay. Trying to edit the value of the size. So I have given the size attribute. So size is equal to 2 at a time. I can allow the two options to be displayed here. Okay. And you can scroll down and you can look for the other options. By default, we'll have the one option displayed. The attribute, the name and the size we have seen here. So based on the size, like if it's 2, by default we'll show the 2. I mean like 2 elements at a time. I'll just show you in a few seconds. Okay, so here you can see one more attribute called as multiple here. So instead of size is equal to 1, 2, if you give multiple, you can have all the options displayed at a time like this. Okay. For each option we have a value. So when you actually want to retrieve this Volvo text dynamically through the JavaScript, then you actually look for this value. Okay. In that case, so like it's not mandatory like this text and value should be same. It can be anything. Okay. It can be anything. If you get this particular value, you will be able to retrieve the text within it. Okay. plus editor. Okay, where I have all the different programs written here. So you can either use the notepad or notepad plus plus. Okay, you can install it and try out doing some examples here. Okay. And you can use this run option so that launch in Chrome, right? So you can launch in whatever browser you wish to launch. You can create a new file like this and you can do whatever coding you want to do here, and you can save it as .html extension in respective folder you wish to. And we have different options here, view. Okay, you can just look through the different options. These are the like editors. You can feel how it looks. I want to show you. And now we are just moving to the text areas. So text areas include the rows and columns to specify the size of the text. And default text can be included as a content of the text area. So text area, it appears like this as you see in the bottom. So here you can have a multiple lines of text written. So as in the input and all, you are just able to write certain characters. So it's only for some limited number of characters where you want to define something, like you want to give some comments. You can, generally it is useful for like it behaves as a comment section in a form. So text area has this rows and columns. Okay, you can specify how many rows and columns of text you want to write. And the second name, it tells about what kind of text you are writing or talking about. So this name, we call it as aspirations. For example, if you are filling a form, like a student career form and all, so you have certain aspirations, like you want to become so, I mean like you are expecting so and so, this is what my aspiration is. So that detailed reasoning can be provided with the help of this text area with the respective rows and columns which can be specified here. So you have an opening tag and a name attribute. You have the rows and columns here, and you have to appropriately close the text area tag. So this is one of the form elements. So input, radio, select, checkbox. So label is nothing but it gives the name itself, specifies like this is a label we are specifying. Okay, kind of a heading to a particular input tag. For example, username, password you are writing in your login page. So in the label you will write username, colon, and then you will start your input tag and you will write your remaining attributes like value and all. So label is used to specify the title for the particular tag, and the text area you can write multiple lines of text here. Okay, we have two more attributes called as a reset and a submit button. So this reset button will clear if you have written all the, if you have already filled your form, now that you want to reset all the elements, you want to clear all the form data in your web page. In that case, this particular reset will help you out. It will clear all your values. So submit, so the type is equal to submit. So this is a button or an input type on click of which an action has to be performed. So it specifies like this is a type of submit and the value submit form. So you are going to submit something to your server. Submit has two actions: encode the data of the form and request the server execute the server resident program specified as a value of the action attribute of the form. So when you submit it, certain action has to be performed which is already specified in your form tag action attribute. Okay, a submit is required in every form. So every form, the main intention of the form is to you have to pass certain values to your backend, right? In that case, the submit button has to be mandatory in your form. So let us see one example here. So within the form, we are actually trying to create a table, and the input, you have some name street address, okay, and the zip code here. You're just trying to use some input data within a table. So let us see like how it appears. So I haven't I have already coded this program so that I can save some time in the class. Okay, let me run this program and show you the output and explain the things. Program basically covers almost all your tags which you have learned from beginning. So this is the H2 tag. Then next comes your form. So within the form you can see a table here, T body. This is your row. So here in the first TD or a first cell you are trying to give your buyer's name. So if it's not a table you can give a label tag here, okay. And you have given an input within the TD element, okay. Type is equal to text, name and its size. So we have specified some size, okay. You can give some text here. So similarly we have a street address, zip and all. So now we are done with this table. So again here we have some text which is written in the TD, and the last TD we have the input which is of size 2. You are specifying the size. Again you can give the particular values here, okay. So here we have already seen about the radio buttons. See here we have used a label, okay. This is equal to checked is equal to check the attribute we have given, and all the radio buttons should have the same name as we discussed. So you can make your selection like this and you can submit your particular order, okay. If there is any action specified, this particular form will go to the server, or you can, if you write anything like any values and if you want to clear your order form, so this is a particular kind of a reset. Input type is equal to reset will clear your values whatever you have written. Click on clear order form, okay. So we didn't specify any action to be performed. If you have any real time server, we can hit an action so that these form details will be submitted there. From Sri Shivani College of Engineering. So what kind of tools I am using to code my HTML? It's Notepad++ editor, as I have already specified this one. And one more thing, we can have a different kinds of editors, not only Notepad++, but also Eclipse, brackets IO. So you can find them online. You can download it. Also Dreamweaver. So these are certain editors. So at this point of time, I recommend to practice in a notepad so that students will be well acquainted with all the tags. Okay, with the editor, any of your editors. Okay. Methods. In the methods, we have a get and post method. For the input tag, we have seen the type, name, size, and the default size, the max. Okay, we missed the max letter. We'll just practice that one also. And size we have seen, and checked is equal to checked attribute. So by default, it will be checked. And radio buttons we have seen. So all the radio buttons should have the same name. We have seen the select tag with the name, size attribute. So size, if you are giving 1, by default you are showing only one item in the drop down. And if you are giving size is equal to 2, so you can see the 2 options at a time. If you are giving multiple, you can see all the options that are specified. So these are the outputs. Rows, columns. So I'll just show you the example of text area as well. So reset we have already seen how we are actually resetting our form. Okay, let's quickly see the max length which we missed, and as well as appears here. You will give a name, rows and a cause. So let me run this one. So you have specified 3 rows and 4. Okay. So when I am continuously typing the text, you can see a scroll that has appeared here, right? So when you have excess content, you will get this scroll by default. Okay. So that is all about text area. Max length attribute for text area as well. Okay. As we have already seen for the input, we can specify it for the text area as well. Created a new document like this. Okay, and now I'm just trying to save my file. So I'm talking about max length, right? .html. So here save as type will be my all files. Okay, and save. So now my document is saved. So this is a default thing I have specified. So whatever the URL you are going to specify in future, you can just give it in an action. What is the action that has to be performed? Okay. And then you have the max length as 10. We'll run this using see here actually I'm not allowed to enter more than 10 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So as I have already specified the max length as 10. Okay, so it's not allowing me to enter more than 10. See, and cannot enter it. So this value you can change it to 15. It will allow some of values. So this is what a simple tag max length is. You can specify it for text area as well. Okay. Frames concept. So frames are the rectangular sections of the display window, each of which can display a different document. So while we are coding, for example, I have shown you the W3C w3schools.com, right? So in the left portion, I have the code, and in the right portion, I can see the output, right? So these two different places, or we call them as a window or a frame. So that particular window, whatever that rectangular section we are viewing, right? We call it as a frame. So in a web page can be divided into number of frames based on the requirement. Because frames are no longer part of XHTML, you cannot validate a document that includes frames. So this frame concept is not as like deprecated in XHTML. Okay, the frame set tag specifies a number of frames and their layout in the window. So as we have seen a table tag, border, Okay, we have a frame set tag as well. Frame set, it takes the place of the body. So whatever the viewport or the place you are viewing, right, on your browser, so it can be divided into respective frames using the frame set tag. And it frame set tag must have either a row attribute or a calls attribute. So as we discussed in our table, we have attributes like border, align, v align kind of things. For frame set also we have certain attributes like rows, calls. Okay, like a text area we have a rows and columns. Here the frame set we have the rows and calls attribute, or both usually the case. So generally we'll have both, like you want to have a navigation bar on the top portion of your web page. In the middle you want a content, and in the bottom if you want a footer, you can divide your page as a three different frames. Okay, and here it is specified like default is 1, and the possible values for rows and calls are numbers, percentages and asterisks. So or a percentage or an asterisk. Generally we use this asterisk for specifying all. Okay, a number of values specifies the row height in the pixels. Not terribly useful. I mean generally we specify the rows and calls mostly using percentages only. Okay, a percentage specifies a percentage of the total window height for the row every. So this is very useful, and this is like we generally don't use the numbers for rows and calls because it specifies in pixels, which is a very small minor portion you minor difference you can observe. So let us see like how it appears in percentages also. So this is a basic syntax. You have a frame set with rows 150, 200, 300. This talks about pixels, okay? Whereas the next line, 25%, 50%, 25%, so it will occupy the top portion as a 25% row, and middle as 50% and bottom as 25%. As you have divided in a three portions, okay? Whereas 50%, 20% and star, it means out of 100%, you have to calculate this. In the second row, frame set rows 25, 50, 25, you are talking like you are considering your page as 100%. So top is your 25%, middle 50. So altogether if you sum you get 100%. So here what it is talking about in third line is like you have a top frame as 50% and middle frame as 20%. What is the rest? 30%, right? So we are not specifying the number, specifying with the star, and the bottom will be the star. Okay, if the frame is divided as four portions, in that case also you can specify. You have a columns like this. So you have 50%, this is your row, and you have a column 40 and remaining 60% will be a rest of your column. So we'll understand more when we see an example here. The frame tag specifies the content of the frame. If you want to specify any content, you have to use the frame tag. So the first frame tag in a frame set specifies the content of the first frame. The row measure order is used. Frame content is specified with the SRC attribute. So in that particular frame, if you want to load any URL, it can be done using the source attribute like image SRC you have done. You can have a SRC for your frame tag as well. So this can be better understood with the help of an example. Okay, let me share you an example here. Okay, I'm just trying to show the desktop screen. So login form using cascading style sheets. See, cascading style sheets is nothing but we are adding styles to your HTML page. Generally, you code your login page in a HTML, and for background color, for the size of the text box, for your submit button stylings and all, you will use the cascading style sheets. So login form you have to design with your form tag and all in your HTML page. And if you want to add any CSS, that is a styling to your page, you have to use the cascading style sheets, which can be an external or an internal or an inline as we discussed in our previous classes. Okay. So here is the example of the frames. You have given a call attribute here, 20% and star. Star will be your 80%. So columns means your web page will be divided into two columns. So 20% will be your first column and remaining star 80% will be your second column. So for the first frame we have given contents.html and second frame we have given fruits.html. So these are the two different HTMLs. Okay, like image src, ahref. This content.html is another HTML page that we are actually calling through this web page. Okay, let me show you, let me run this and show you the example. So I'll also show the contents dot, see, this is your fruits.html which has a description like this. A fruit, it's talking about the fruit.html. Like that we have contents.html also. So this is contents.html. So we have two different HTMLs which are included here in this particular HTML. Okay. See here, you are actually, what is this is occupying the 20% of your frame set, and the remaining source, this is occupying 80%, remaining star asterisk you have specified, right? Okay, so this contents.html, as we have seen here, so this is your contents.html which is in, you have all the list and all, right? See, so this is your contents.html talking about, and this is your fruits.html which has a content. So like this, initially we will be able to differentiate, I mean we will be able to create two different columns. In one column we will give one HTML, in another column we will give one HTML. Okay, now you have to like practice making the different calls and rows as well. So I have shown you the example of calls, right? You have to practice it using the rows as well. Just try to do the calls and rows. Okay, I will share you one link in W3 schools. Okay, so that you can practice it well. Just click on try it yourself and you can find different types of frames here. See, 25%, you haven't specified any percentage to this frame, and you have specified 25. So A and B, A and C will like take the equal percentages, and rest of the portion will be your frame B. So you have specified frame A as 1 HTML. This is 1. Okay. So what happens that particular HTMLs will be displayed here. Same example you can see here. So this is a combination of rows and columns. So initially frame set rows is equal to 50%, 50% you have given. So your page will be divided into two rows initially. Okay, forget about frame B and frame C as of now. First divide your page into two rows. Okay, this blue color and the two colors as two rows initially. Then in the first frame you have a.html or HTML. Both means the same. Okay. So A has whatever the content it is displaying here is in frame A.html, and now you go to the columns. Columns which is your second row. So first row you are done. Okay. Second row again you are dividing into two columns. Okay. First what we did, we divided the rows. row A and row B, for example. In the row A, you have given this a.html. In the second row, you are considering two columns, 25%, 75%. So frame A is 25% and frame C is 75%. Okay. Even if you give star also, the rest it will occupy like 75% only. Okay. Now we are specifying the source. So whatever it has to display. Like this, you can try out the combination rows inside the columns. Okay. You can practice it. We are just mixing all the frames. Frame tags with src attribute. We have different rows and calls attribute for the frame set. For the frame, we have src. Okay. Frame set is a parent. Inside we have the frames with respect to src or rows or columns. Okay. And it is generally specified to have the pixels, percentages instead of pixels. Okay. So star, we have understood the importance of star. So this is all we saw in an example, the content. We have seen the frames.html example. This is what. So in the first example, we have seen two different HTMLs embedded in one HTML. So when you actually run that, you can see like 25% is occupied and 75% is occupied by another frame. So two different frames we have seen. So nested frames also we have seen in the w3schools.com, like a combination of columns and rows. Columns inside the rows and rows inside the columns, you can do it. So syntactic differences between HTML and XHTML. So I think like we are done with the HTML portion today. So these are all the differences like case sensitivity and closing tags, quoted attribute values, explicit attribute values, names and ID attributes. So we have already gone through most of the things. You have to appropriately close the tag. Case sensitivity is like if you are giving a small letters and capital letters. So how the actual page is behaving, it is always recommended to use the small letters while you are coding in HTML or XHTML. Okay. And quoted attributes, we have seen, right? Border is equal to border or checked is equal to checked. We have the string format that is called as a quoted attribute values. And explicit attribute values, we have seen how do actually we navigate, like in anchor tag we have seen the uh, navigation using hash and the address of the portion. Okay. ID and the name attributes we have seen. Element nesting. So we can nest the elements like UL inside the OL or OL inside the UL, and the frame sets also recently we have seen. So these are the differences, like syntactic differences that we have observed in the HTML portion. Okay. Now we are done with the HTML syllabus. So if any doubts, just let me know in the next class.